Hello and welcome to The Comic Cave. I'm Ramsey, aka Captain Away, and today I'm topping off my Dead at 17 breakdowns with a look back through the Dead at 17 Complete Collection. And not the Ultimate Edition like I said in the first video. Sorry for any confusion. You might already be aware that there's already 7 other videos about the various miniseries that make up Dead at 17, so why am I making another? Well, I thought it would be good to have a single, complete overview of the entire series in one video breakdown, so that whether you watch my other videos or not, you could get an idea of the overall story and how they all tie together. If you want to start at the beginning, I'll post a link in the description and at the top of the screen for you to click on so you can view the entire playlist from beginning to end. So with that said, let's jump back to the beginning ourselves and take this away. Again. The first series. Nara Kilday, 17, dies, but gets better, fights some zombies, and with the help of her friends and an occasionally kinda creepy older guy who might be her father, fights off an evil severed head cold, preventing the world from being overrun by demons. Blood of Saints. Violet Gray, 19, dies, but gets better, goes a little crazy, kidnaps and tortures Nara's BFF Hazy, gets magic demon pregnant with the demon lord Bullabog, blows up Nara, and runs away. Revolution. Joan of Arc, age unknown, dies, gets better, lives until the year 2004, where her and a group called Heaven's Militia help Nara Kilday and her not real dad Noel Ratimer fight the already fully grown recently human-born Bullabog and prevent the world from being overrun by demons. Joan and Bullabog fall into an abyss, Violet gets her head blown off, super gruesome, Nara dies, again, in order to save Hazy and her baby. The 13th Brother. Asia Black, age not listed, but I'm going with 17 anyway, dies, but gets better when angelic form Nara crawls into her body, becomes a superhero, then dies again so Nara can be reborn and prevent the key to the abyss from being used so the world's not overrun by demons. Afterbirth. Nara becomes a terrorist killing people marked for demonic transmogrification. Abraham Pidge, once just a severed head, now possessing his son, becomes the religious leader of the Marked. Asia goes across the universe to meet the angel group the Zodiac, only to learn they don't know how many signs are in the Zodiac, and that they want hell to be released on Earth. Hazy becomes the key to Purgatory, and Nara, now knowing her purpose, kills Hazy to unleash the key, meaning Earth will now be overrun by demons. Nara gets thrown into the abyss. The Witch Queen. Nara is being gaslighted by a demon, slowly going more and more crazy until she's rescued by a man that God apparently promised her to. Gross. Asia is being tortured by a demon and slowly becoming more and more goth, until she is rescued by Nara. Nara and Asia meet up with Mel, the promised man, and try to escape Purgatory. Asia and Nara's soul don't make it, Mel and Nara's body do. The Blasphemy Throne. The Earth, 4.5 plus billion years, dies, but gets better thanks to all the characters we've met along the way, and a couple we met in other Josh Howard series, and the Nickelodeon children's cartoon version of The Angel of Death, fighting off all the demons that have overrun the world. As a reward for their service, Nara and Mel get taken to another world where they can become a new Adam and Eve. And that covers it for the entire series, so let's close the book on this epic biblical adventure and get to the breakdown. As you can probably tell, I love this comic. From beginning to end, it's fun and exciting, the art is pleasing, the story is compelling and addicting, the characters are entertaining, memorable, and likable, and the plot is well-paced and enthralling. It was great rereading this series all at once and really getting to enjoy how much Howard grows as an artist, from the simple and almost at times clunky webcomic art of the first series, to the legitimately pretty gorgeous, if occasionally overly cartoony, final series. It's also pretty remarkable to note that I can't really say he grew in the same way as a storyteller. Honestly, from the beginning he had a pretty great sense of timing and pacing. Though I took note of quite a few text dumps, it never felt like things were being over or under explained, and it never felt like the pace was being slowed by them. I'm not sure if it was his own decision or the publishers that kept the series in these tight little 4-issue runs, but in some ways I think it helped the comic. forcing Howard to keep the story going and not giving in to indulging himself too much with unnecessary extras. Which is not to say we didn't still get a fair amount of side stuff, including a lot of character drama worthy of the CW. Occasionally, the short form did hurt the comic, particularly in that sometimes it would feel a little too rushed or like a side plot was going to be built into something, and because of time or issue constraints, nothing ever really came of it. There were also at least 2 points I noticed where somebody said something like, "Make sure to tell so-and-so," and then the comic cut away, presumably to let us know what was going to be said when it was told to the person in question, but on both occasions, we never did get the end of that sentence. In particular, with Mel as he dies, we can assume he wanted Elijah to tell Nara something, but Elijah never meets up with Nara. Where did that plot go? This is possibly an effect of having a single writer and artist making the entire comic. And while I love Howard's art, and definitely him doing the inking and coloring really helped define its style, I can't say that it wouldn't have benefited from him collaborating with a talented inker and colorist, especially in the early days. And while he has unquestionably mastered a style of drawing exaggerated curviness of women, there are points that are weak about his art. In particular, I'm pretty sure he didn't feel very comfortable drawing locations. This leads to a lot of panels with no background at all, which is possibly partially a stylistic choice, but the lack of establishing shots at almost any point occasionally made it hard to tell much about where events were happening. In particular, Darlington Hills should have practically been a character in its own right, with 6 of the 7 comics taking place almost entirely within its borders, but I'm still not really sure if it was supposed to be a small town or a major city. But that's not to say Howard never takes care with his backgrounds. He's actually really good about putting details into the background of panels to give them notice or give importance to something without drawing too much attention to it. Like how in the 13th Brother, we can learn what happened to Asia if we're paying attention 2 entire issues before it's explained to us, because you can just make out Nara's angel form in the mirror in this shot. Or even less important things, like Lisa from the first series. She's basically there to be annoying and the one that gets killed off. Under so many other creators, I probably would have forgotten she was even there at all by the time she got killed. But Howard never lets us forget, keeping her in the background of almost any shot she could be in, and with that bright pink hair, you're pretty unlikely to not notice her. And I can't leave without talking about the elephant in the room. Yes, I have criticized other comics for the way they depict women, and yes, I can certainly criticize Dead at 17 for the same. I mean, not only are the women in the series depicted with heavy emphasis on their sexual parts, but they are frequently mostly or completely naked as well. And yeah, there are points where I definitely frown at that, particularly to the occasional points where it would feel noticeably inappropriate to the seriousness of the story. But I think context is important as well, and a lot of times women in comics that are depicted as sexual objects are also written in that way, if they're given any personality at all. But the women in this series are written like most people would write male characters. They're actual people with desires and feelings all of their own, who are doing their best to be good people in a world filled with the worst of villains that are almost exclusively male. The one major exception is Lilith, whose motivation for becoming evil is basically the way she was treated by males. This is also true for Violet, who is also a bit of a villain, but I'd say is pretty sympathetic despite that, especially by the time she makes a comeback in The Witch Queen. So I can't help but compare this comic to Preacher, especially since I just recently reviewed that. They're similar in a lot of superficial ways. They're about characters caught in an insane war between heaven and hell, trying to be good people in a world filled with corruption and sin. But they're also drastically different. Preacher was almost overbearingly masculine, that spent most of its time trying to find ways to offend every sensibility you might have, and by the end, even the main characters were all such despicable people that I didn't know who you should be rooting for, if anyone. The fight between Jesse and Cassidy, despite building for a long time, had pretty low impact because by that point, what did I care about either of them? Dead at 17, on the other hand, goes to what feels like great lengths to avoid offending anyone, and it's remarkably feminine without ever attempting to draw attention to it. There is literally no point where any form of feminist or girl power expression is made, but the women of the series are still the superheroes, and the men are their support team at best, and their arch enemies at worst. And so even given the sexual depiction of the female characters, I can't help but feel that it's really not that big of a deal. And maybe it's just that I happen to like Josh Howard's style, but I also think, given everything else, even at its worst, it's pretty much excusable. And so, after giving Preacher a recommendation level of high, what can I honestly give a series that I find to be like Preacher, but better in pretty much every conceivable way? Yeah, a recommendation level of very high. The only real tragedy here is that Josh Howard in general, in this series in particular, aren't bigger successes and more popular than they already are. Thanks everybody for watching! Man, did I ever have a lot to say about Dead at 17. I didn't even know. Though if I ever again say, hey, let's do 8 updates in 8 days, yeah, please find a way to reach through the internet and slap me. Man, am I exhausted. Not that I'm stopping, I'll be back on this next Friday with my first requested series. Hope to see you then, right here in the Comic Cave.